Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer. Welcome to another edition of the Development Hell Podcast with the Movie Club here. And this November, we're talking about They Live. So get ready, obey, and listen to what we have to say. So I didn't even mean to Dr. Seuss that, but there we go. So, and this week we're introduced, this month, we got my friend Joe here who's joining the club. So club's ever growing. And Joe, if you want to do a quick intro for yourself, and then actually you could get started because we're going to loop around and say what our thoughts are on They Live.
Hey, thank you very much, Shane. I'm Joe. Prior to this, for a while, I was making videos on YouTube. I have my own channel on YouTube, Joey T Cartoon P, where I was posting animation reviews, mostly geared towards any type of animation. But
Like
anyway,
Norm
it's
of
enough.
the North.
Yep. Yeah, I feel that that's like the first thing. Yeah, that too. Funny story. I'll always remember the fact that people thought the movie ended, and then yet people left the theater, and then there was a post-credit scene, and then people actually still left the theater, or actually started screaming obscenities. Like parents were actually screaming obscenities to the theaters. It wasn't even the kids. For Norm of the North, there was a last-minute teaser, right, for the next movie. And apparently nobody wanted. A dad stood up ready to go. It was like a silhouette, like when you're watching a silhouette in front of the movie, Mystery Science Theater, right? And then you just see a scene where the friggin' bear is dancing, and then the dad's just like, "Oh, F you," hands up and everything. I was like, that's my reaction to this movie. That's just how I felt. I was like, yeah.
Well, luckily, we're not here to talk about Norm of the North. We're here to talk about John Carpenter's They Live,
yes.
1988. And this is a sci-fi thriller action film with plenty of, all out of bubble gum, but definitely kicking some ass. So, Joe, what are your immediate thoughts on They Live?
I was very surprised that I've never seen this movie. The first time I was exposed to it was actually the YouTube clips of the bubblegum scene, right? I think they were just a compilation of the most badass lines in movies. And that was the number one. And just what is this, right? And it wasn't until I actually, saw the movie with you that I realized it's this movie inspired so many memes. It inspired so many references and artwork too. Obey is a huge, graphic arts, street art. Yeah, with Andre the Giant's face, and then you have Obey below it, right? Yeah. That was a big graffiti movement for a while. I didn't realize it actually came from that movie, and I could see why. It's got a great commentary to it, but the thing that I love the most about it is that it's just a badass hero's journey, with aliens and a corporate message. It's Big Brother, but with the pop of out there say comic booky sci-fi stuff. It's just a marriage of B movies and something smarter that gives you something smarter than a B movie. And I mean, to me, it makes me appreciate it on all levels as just a popcorn movie and a movie that you want to, like we're doing today, to just talk about. It's one of those movies that just marries the two perfectly. You could get the guy who just likes the dumb action stuff, and someone who's just like you, Shane, who just knows a lot about movies. It's the marriage for everyone.
Well, it's funny because Matt and I rewatched this together. And when I've watched this plenty of times, I know all the lines. And when you just life's a bitch, and I'm just and she's back in heat, and Matt just cracked up because he didn't really think that was going to be the line.
Yeah, he's wait, so, I thought you just make that up. 2 seconds later, then he actually says it in a movie, and I'm like, nope. Too much cheese. I'm drowning in it too much.
That's the beauty of They Live. Is it's peaks and valleys of popcorn garbage, right? To something smart and insightful, and then back to popcorn garbage.
So, Alex, what are your thoughts on They Live?
Man, dude, I could go on a long monologue with this one. Mostly good. I have mostly good things to say. I mean, this movie taps into a really primal thing for me. It did when I first saw it. I think the first time I saw it, I was in like my mid to late 20s. And then, now that I'm in my mid 30s, it still kind of taps into a primal thing for me. It's kind of like a reminder of what's important in your life, because we make a lot of decisions and we make a lot of choices in our lives based on money, based on expectations that other people have for us, based on expectations that society has for us. And at the time, John Carpenter was trying to poke holes in the fabric of Reaganomics and capitalism on steroids, literally on steroids. I mean, it was the 1980s.
And cocaine.
Yeah, steroids and cocaine. So, I mean, he's really poking at a pretty primal thing here for me. And for me, it works. I agree with Joe about, the peaks and valleys between popcorn garbage and something like really like insightful. And so I absolutely love this movie. And I love that John Carpenter was starting to really shoot from the hip at this point in his career. I think that at this point in his career, he's getting a little lazy. He's getting a little sloppy. And he knows that, but at the same time, like, he's basically shooting from the hip and saying, I'm going to run and gun film, and I'm gonna make a film that's gonna send a very clear message. It's incredibly heavy-handed. It hits you right in the forehead with what he's trying to say. And I think you have to be a veteran filmmaker, almost have to be a veteran filmmaker, and also have to feel like, what, I don't give a fuck anymore. I'm just going to say it right then and there. And he does that. And so I have a lot of fun. I think it is a B movie. It does feel like a grindhouse movie in some ways, but it's also like really digging into my chest. I mean, I don't know if I write some of the songs that I wrote if it wasn't for this movie. I don't know if I'd pick up and drive to California if it's not for movies like this, because they just kind of said, hey, like look, put on the glasses, like look at what
Literally.
Yeah, so yeah, I love this movie. I always will. I do, I watched it with Jim a few weeks back, and when there were some moments where like, okay, yeah, this could have been redone. Like, okay, yeah, this could have been redone. There's a lot of that now, but I kind of love that there's a cheesy kind of B movie.
It's so funny you say that too, because like there is this forceful nature to it where it's a very aggressive filmmaking to the point where there is a scene we're probably going to be gushing about where we're talking about putting on the glasses, right? Where like in some ways it's like you're taking the aggressiveness that Reaganomics had, but doing the opposite effect of it, being like, let's try to make a commentary in the way that Reaganomics was more or less buy, consume, but in other ways like, open your eyes, sheeple. This is what you're dealing with, sort of way.
Yeah.
It is very aggressive, and yeah, it's very interesting, Alex.
But so Matt, what are your thoughts on They Live?
Yeah, I once heard someone describe the Avengers like like a kid taking their toy box and then just emptying it on the floor and then just kind of just throwing toys at each other. And like, it's kind of like yeah, it can sort of be seen like that. Then, and this movie, like I'm imagining this movie. So like, when I'm watching it, right, like there's a lot to be said about how you should how you should be kind of like a skeptical or like an informed consumer, and like you should like stay awake, and you should know, and you should kind of like authority maybe like needs checks and balances, like all that stuff. That's like over here, and you guys are definitely going to talk about that part. But for me, when I was watching the movie, I just kept thinking that like whoever wrote this was probably like sitting on their bed and was just like fantasizing about kind of like, what if I had all of the power? Like, what if I knew like what's actually happening, and then I would just go on this, and then I can go on like this huge, almost video game like rampage, just like shooting aliens and like randomly like flirting with like weird women, and then just all like this wild stuff. Like there's explosions, and there's punching, and there's sunglasses, and I'm like super buff for no reason. Like I don't know. Like imagine like the screenwriter kind of just like, oh yeah, damn, I like that, and then just like, oh yeah, and then this happened. So I was watching it, just like thinking like that, thinking that this is kind of like, aside from the message that the movie wants you to probably take away, like I feel like also it's kind of like this. It's this fantasy. It's fantasy. It's popcorn. It's like you are the chosen one kind of thing. That's in like one out of every like two movies. Like you are the one who knows how to do like this thing or this, or like everyone is counting on you, like because you are the main character and you got to like save everybody. So
it's a hero's journey. Like it's a straight up like
that in life. And long as nobody like watches this movie and goes, you know what, I'm gonna start saving people and I'm gonna start doing this thing and that thing, and like I don't know. That's like another conversation. I guess I'll wait for later. Shane, you have to go with that.
But most importantly, so Matt, are we taking Nada and Frank to Applebee's?
Interesting.
Wait, should we explain this to? Should we explain to Joe what this is?
I am buying them shots. I am buying.
So, to explain to Joe and our viewers who haven't watched any of our episodes before, Matt's a big fan of Applebee's. So these main characters
that I do know outside.
Our main characters have to be real good if we're going to invite them to Applebee's with us. So sounds like Alex is bringing them no matter what and getting them some shots. So I think Alex answered for you, Matt. I don't know if you have a choice now.
I think I want to hang out with one of the aliens. Like, do you guys want to hang out with one of the aliens?
I would love to have a scene where we're all hanging out and it's the last scene of the movie, right? And
we're
like
the ones
we
at
just
the
find out
Applebee's bar.
Our bartender or one of our friends could be an alien. Matt.
And I'm just gonna turn to them like, you formaldehyde face.
Or I turn around like what?
We'll get to that. But Jim and Vinny, you hadn't seen this before, right?
Right.
So Jim, what are your thoughts after watching They Live for the first time?
So as Alex said, we got together to watch this, and I'm kind of glad that he was there to like provide an atmosphere of levity, because I didn't really know what I was walking into. I just checked my notes and I wrote down 3 things. I wrote down glorification of violence. I put don't trust the media. But my third note was something about conspiracy theories. So I'm going to have to like go back and try to figure out the connection between the two. But like, I think it was just because of like the world we live in today. People don't really know why they don't trust the media, but they definitely don't trust the media. So it was like, to me, the message kind of got lost in between, but I agree with everything you guys have said so far. Fun movie to watch. Interesting choice for lead actor in Roddy Piper.
So, you know what's funny? Can we agree, or at least did everyone else think that this was 100% written for Kurt Russell? Because like I don't think I can hear anybody else going in and be saying the lines that Nada says and it not be Kurt Russell just swaggering around, especially after he did all of those films with John Carpenter.
Oh, yeah.
I totally agree with you, and I think, but in some ways that's why it works, because like he has like this, I don't know. Has he acted before this movie? Is this his first acting credit?
I think so.
Yeah,
I don't
because
think
like the first time he's putting on the glasses and it sounds like he's getting like really, he's like, whoa, whoa, like something about that delivery that's both probably unintentional, but totally works in a way where it's so unlike anything you've seen from a lead. Like it's, I don't know. It's like
there's definitely some moments where it's not great acting,
right?
And it's stiff. But
look, if Kurt Russell is cast in the role, they're probably going to make it. It's going to have a bigger budget. They're probably going to spend more time on the script. They're going to tighten it up. It's probably going to be a better movie. It's probably going to be a better production. And I could definitely see, especially after Big Trouble in Little China, which, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure that came before this.
Yes.
Big Trouble in Little China is a fun movie, but it's also a dumb movie. However, it's shot and produced incredibly well compared to this. So They Live Big Trouble feels like a grindhouse, like, I don't even know how to describe it. It feels like it should have been a B movie, but it was made on an A movie level. This is a B movie, They Live is a B movie, nobody's like going to dispute that. And I think that's one of the reasons why you end up getting Roddy Piper is because Kurt Russell, he's trying to get A-list. He can't be in a B movie at this stage in his career.
He's doing Overboard and stuff like that.
Literally.
John Carpenter is knocking over the chess pieces with this movie. He's saying, look, I'm gonna just dig this one right into your people's chests and I'm gonna let you deal with it. I'm not going to make this pretty for you. I mean, it's,
if you put Kurt Russell, it's gonna give you familiarity because he's had so many movies he's done with him, and it's gonna be like what you're saying with Big Trouble in Little China, like that it would make it feel I see what you're saying.
Well, and also we wouldn't have gotten a 10-minute wrestling match in the middle of the movie.
Obviously, that was the best acting Piper did in the entire movie.
We all agree on one thing.
Doing it.
Can we all agree on one thing about that scene? It could have been a whole lot shorter if he would have just said yes.
You just want to put on the damn glasses.
It's like,
I do have to say, the one other acting role that I remember Roddy Piper for is 10 years later on Walker, Texas Ranger.
And then 20 years later on Always Sunny.
Oh yeah, he was on Always Sunny too.
And he plays a wanderer too. Like he plays like and they even joke, like, what's up with this guy? Where is he? He just shows up and he leaves.
But now, Vinny, I was very, very interested to hear what you had to say about this movie, because I remember when I brought this idea up, you're like, this isn't a real movie.
Wait, what?
When we first brought this up and I was describing the plot of this, he's like, this can't be real.
Did I have that reaction? I don't remember.
I remember that reaction.
Is this reaction real?
But Vinny, what are your thoughts on They Live?
Well, you know what, I do agree with what Alex said about like even though the commentary is heavy-handed, like that's what makes it effective, because that's the whole point of consumerism. Like consumerism is in your face, so it only makes sense that the consumer commentary for the movie is heavy-handed. And there was one like little thing that I liked. Like it was a scene where what's Roddy Piper's character's name?
Nada.
Okay. There was like the scene where I think it's like when he like first puts on the glasses, he goes to that magazine kiosk. There was I didn't mind the commentary being heavy-handed, but one little bit of subtlety that I liked was how kind of like near the edge of the frame you see like a magazine. It's like a golfing magazine, and then there's like a little thing. There's like a little part on the cover. It says like let TV teach you how to play golf. So that kind of fed into like people's obsession with like consuming media and just just the whole thing with consumerism and all that. So I thought that was like a nice little subtle touch to the consumerism message. But as far as Roddy Piper goes, I wasn't a fan of him as a protagonist because I thought he was boring. Like I'm sorry. I hate to say that because there were parts of the movie I did like, but Roddy Piper wasn't one of them. And there were several times where I thought to myself, Keith David he has the more interesting character. He should have been the lead in this.
Yeah.
I think I said the same thing, Vinny. I think those words came out of my mouth. Maybe, I don't know if Alex can corroborate or not, but at least I had the same thought while watching the movie for sure at some point.
Well, and I think that's the thing too, when you like, obviously they leaned into Roddy Piper during the fight because like that's what he does. That's what he did for a living. He's a pro wrestler, and they sure put on an amazing fight. And then the few moments where he really gets like fired up, like in the flower shop, and he's just like, you know, I put on these glasses, and I look at you, you look fine. You formaldehyde face. You real effing ugly. And like those moments, a lot of fun. But like the very beginning of the movie, I remember watching this for the first time where he's like getting interviewed for that job, and I'm like, so stiff. So awkward.
Yeah.
He's just like, I'm reading a line. Okay, you're reading.
It's like he doesn't even really get, the character doesn't really kick in until he gets the glasses.
Yeah. And so like, I love this movie. Obviously, this is why I picked this movie. But this is a flawed movie. There's obviously things like, one, there's a few John Carpenter films that you could feel the lack of budget. And this is definitely one of them, because by the time you get to the third act of this movie, they're like, oh shit, we barely have any money left and we have to get this movie over. And
I think the only, besides this, besides They Live, I think the only other John Carpenter movie I've seen is Halloween. I don't think
it was also very low budget.
but
right.
Right.
I'm just saying,
yeah.
Yeah.
But like for this one, it's just like, okay, let's jump in the portal. Let's get the hell through this building.
Hey man, it was the late 80s, early 90s, man. If you need to go somewhere, you just open a portal, dude.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's like, I remember watching this being like, the third act of this movie's 10 minutes. And just like, oh, wait, movie's over?
Even the ending is very
Abrupt.
which I actually like a lot more because of the abrupt ending. Because to me, I feel like looking for a close, like a I guess a bow at the end would be too perfect. Like, and society was able to go on with alien. We have no idea if the aliens revolt against us.
I definitely don't have an issue with the very ending was hilarious and perfect.
Yeah.
With Siskel and Ebert on the screen talking crap about John Carpenter movies, and then the whole bed thing where it's like, hey baby, and she just looking up and looking down and like, dude's an alien, you're having sex with an alien, and just leaves it on that. And that's great. But like you could tell, like, and they did Frank dirty, just like bam. And poor Keith David. But the thing is, like, you can tell, like, obviously you can make this movie for a lot bigger budget, but I feel like there's a charm about the fact that this is a B movie. And come on, the
Well,
obey, this is your God now, like
Well,
all of those different things.
well, you know, well, do you think John Carpenter cast Roddy Piper because it was a B movie and he didn't think like a more serious actor would fit into the tone? Do you think that was maybe the case?
I'm very interested to find out, did they do that big fight scene because they did hire Roddy Piper, or they had that big fight scene and like, we really need to get somebody that could do this 10-minute fight scene?
It's a great question.
Because
Well, you know, I feel like they probably cast Roddy Piper first, and then John Carpenter was probably like, you know, people know him as a wrestler. Like, we should have a scene in here where he does like something, you know, it's not really wrestling, but something close to it. It's like
it is a street
You know, there's
fight.
going to be
Street
some
fighting,
wrestling
yeah.
fans watching the movie saying, you know, be very disappointed if they don't see their favorite wrestler suplex somebody.
Yep, exactly. And he sure does.
But and you know, just from a filmmaking standpoint, that fight scene is shot so well.
it is.
It is.
It's so much fun to watch. Every time I watch it, it has replay value.
Well, you know, part of the thing is that like so many big budget movies today, you have these action scenes where there's like a cut every 2 or 3 seconds. Like
Yes.
there aren't many shots that stay on something for a good amount of time. It's like
yes.
it's like bam, 2 seconds there, then
So-
2 seconds over here. It's like,
If anybody's ever watched any of my reviews that had to do anything with action movies, will know that I go on tangents all the time about how much I hate fast editing and action scenes and not being able to see what the hell is going on.
I
And
agree.
This
Yes.
is a great fight scene. And not just to give credit to Roddy Piper, but Keith David. And if there's a fire there, he's such an underappreciated actor. And like, I would throw Keith David in anything and just make things better.
It's so good you're saying that too, because like I was watching a really long time ago. It was a Nostalgia Critic video on I mean, I rarely ever watch it nowadays, and most of the stuff is kind of cringy, but like he had a review for Batman v Superman, and his biggest criticism was the fact that if you're gonna have someone fight somebody, there needs to be intention. There needs to be a reason that you're going to see these two people fight on something. Now, granted, you know, putting on glasses, not putting on glasses, not the best reason, but I mean, two personalities, right?
And one person doesn't want to put on the glasses.
Right.
Yeah. And like at that point,
Like
he's
it
like,
is.
Frank does not want to give in to this guy,
Mm-hmm.
and Nada does not want to give up on getting
the intention,
Frank to
yeah.
put on these glasses. And they're just two forces nailing each other. And just that exhausted Roddy Piper was just like, you're gonna put on these sunglasses and make you eat that trash can. And just that. I do have a couple other things I wanted to say, just general things. So it was funny because I was talking to Jim and Alex about music over the weekend at my birthday party, and I'm a huge fan of Disturbed. And one of their songs from their album Immortalized is called The Vengeful One. And the whole entire music video is based off of They Live.
Mhm.
And basically, Guy, their mascot, is like a vengeful spirit who comes down into a TV studio and starts killing all of the machines that are running this studio and turning everybody into like zombies through the TV. And I'm like, somebody watched They Live and made like a crazy heavy metal version of They Live.
That's what I was saying before too, about like They Live inspires so much. I was watching a video today where they said creativity, right, is just, you know, getting an idea somewhere and doing your own thing. Whereas, yes, you can argue that, you know, Carpenter, you know, is getting the idea from Orwell, right, of a dystopian future. If we feed into too much, like it's a commentary on society, things that have been done before, but like in a way where you're doing something new and creative that like most people look at that and they get great artwork out of watching what he's done, like you said with the Disturbed video and in the in the graffiti art that we see with I forget who the artist is, but like you see the piece and you know it's They Live.
Well, one thing I was just thinking about the fight scene was I know we talked about like how long that sequence is, but I was thinking that one reason why that works is because and like what's also funny about it is how like like you have this prolonged fight of what's his name, Nada.
Yep.
Yeah. You have this prolonged fight of Nada trying to get Keith David's character to put on these glasses, and like in order to see like what consumerism is doing to the world, and this prolonged fight, with him trying to have Keith David, use this product. It's kind of like the prolonged fight of like consumerism force feeding other products to the masses.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely was thinking during this movie about other not so movies, for example, that took the same kind of message and went really deep with it, like The Matrix, for example. They went a little bit more philosophically, they took a little bit more of a sophisticated approach. But like Disturbed, there's a System of a Down music video. I think it's BYOB, and it's heavily inspired by this movie for sure. So if you haven't seen it, there's like an army of dudes, probably faceless people, and instead of it's kind of looks like the people from Squid Game, but on their masks it has these messages like obey, or like God, big, just God, God messages, like exactly like the ones that Nada sees when he puts on the glasses, right? So I was also thinking about kind of how different those kind of the turn of the millennium and after, how music and movies would approach this kind of anti-consumerist bent if this movie hadn't been made and if they hadn't been influenced by it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And I have to say it because it's a John Carpenter movie, because the score, which bum, 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 bum. And it's just like, I know John Carpenter scores are simplistic most of the time, it's some tones and stuff like that, but this one takes the cake of just like that guitar and just like the whole entire time just setting that tone for the whole entire movie. And I'm a huge fan of John Carpenter. There's just a certain charm about the fact that like he can do so much with such a low budget and so much simplicity.
Absolutely.
And it was interesting because we've all been talking about all of these influences, and I'm like looking at on Wikipedia about like different influences and stuff like that. Apparently this inspired Darren Aronofsky for The Wrestler.
Oh, wow.
And how he did like the wrestling scenes and stuff like that because of the fight scene in this movie.
Okay.
And if I recall too, I think that movie score was also very Carpenter-like. Even for Clint Mansell, he like took a seat back and tried to like simplify his score.
And then the Andre Has a Posse campaign that Joe, you brought up, that's on here on Wikipedia. And just like Green Day paid homage to They Live in their music video Back in the USA. So like, there's just a lot of different things that like this film has permeated media. And it's crazy in 2021 that people like me are sitting here with an Obey poster in the room. Matt has a They Live t-shirt that I saw on Sunday. And just like, I know there's people that have stuff like that and probably have never seen They Live. And they're
That-
just like, they just think like, this is cool. And it's just like, you don't even know how cool it is. But one thing I do want to say too, and this can be an interesting conversation, is this movie worries me a little bit in terms of like, Jim, you brought up conspiracy theories and stuff like that, because like Q and all kinds of stuff like that really feeds off of like this idea of like, we need to be woken up, and that's the thing. It's like
should
like
we go-
red pill type stuff.
do you guys want to go around the room and each say what your favorite conspiracy theory is?
I don't do enough. I don't do
Well,
enough.
most of mine are real, anyways. I mean, we all know that Zuckerberg's a lizard, so it's not really a conspiracy. At this
lizard
point.
people, Jewish space lasers, cabals of
Yeah.
Honestly, like the one that always comes down, like my personal favorite one that always comes up, and I think it's a joke at this point, is just, you know, Illuminati, you know, overlords that like control everything and
Yeah.
see everything. I think that's just my all-time favorite one.
like aliens who are living among us. And
I think
go ahead, Alex.
what I was going to say, and if people want to talk about specific conspiracy theories, and like, I'll let you do that in a second. But first, I'm going to say, I think that the problem with a lot of people taking that from this film is that you have to remember that this is metaphor and this is art. And he's saying, you know, and I wanted to mention, you know, the biggest like poke to the chest that he gives us is like it's like, dude, it can't be more than a 2-second edit of "this is your God," you know, 9 to 5, clock in, clock out, everything our parents do, you know, everything that our world is kind of like made of and surrounds, it has a lot to do with money. And so you fears, insecurities, self-conscious thoughts, negativity, good and bad, status, high and low. I mean, there's so much you can talk about with that. And that's not conspiracy. That is literally how we view money. You have more money and you get more respect. You know, there's a lot of that talk that goes on in our culture. There's a lot of that talk that goes on in business, in big business. It even goes on in education. And so that is the biggest poke to the chest, is when he shows that money that says, "This is your God." It's not an alien. It's not some fucker on the internet, you know, doing programming, fucking up your brain. It's not Q. It's the call to you to say, like, who are you? You know, what, you know, it's about enlightening you to say, what choices do you make to make your own world for you, your family? Is the money really what's important? You know, is the status really what's important? Or is it what you have to offer in your self-expression as an artist, as a worker,
Having value.
as a human being, value.
Well,
Value, which is funny
well, you
because
know
the
what?
paper just has value. It's the value you're putting into it. So when you're actually looking back and saying that you're not putting that, you really have to put it to yourself. Yeah, absolutely.
Money's a
What-
construct.
Well, you know what? Shane holding up that dollar bill a minute ago had me thinking, like,
He ain't making it rain tonight.
Well, you know, I was like him holding up that dollar. It made me think of that one line from RoboCop. You know, I'd buy that for
I'd
a
buy
dollar.
that for $1.
And it got me thinking, like, they live in RoboCop, they live in RoboCop. Like, they would make a pretty good double feature.
Oh, so great.
Well, what about what Matt would say about The Simpsons with Homer Simpson and his kids? You know what I'm thinking about, right? With the monies and his
Wait.
kids.
Why I have 3 kids and no money. Why can't I have no kids?
Oh.
Free money.
But the thing is,
Yep.
it's like this, because like RoboCop's hitting the same nerve. And when people, because like you could just look at RoboCop as like this extreme, violent, over-the-top movie and completely lose all of the commentary that movie is hitting at, because there's so much of it, like corporatizing the police, all of those interludes, like the whole nuclear war board game that they have, like, play with your family. I just nuked you. And like height of the Cold War, like, well, tail end of the Cold War, I guess. Late 80s, but like the whole I'll buy that for $1, and it's all the same commercialism that they're taking shots at, Reaganomics, the whole entire big bad of RoboCop's a corporation.
They Live came out in 88. I'm looking up when RoboCop.
I feel like that was 87.
You know, it's interesting you say that because
87.
You know, the spirit of the 90s has always been revolt, has always been like grunge and like anti-corporate. And I feel like for They Live to come up at that point, it's like just the right timing to just lead into that 90s mentality of like, you know, F everything.
This is going to be really random, but this like building off of what Joe just said. So I was driving to the movies before recording this, and we're in my fiance's car, and it's like a 2005 Acura. So like there's no auxiliary cable or anything. So actually having to listen to the radio, I'm like, geez. But like flipping between
That's how it's done.
So on one station, Stone Temple Pilots came on, and Jess is like, I don't want to listen to this. So she flips to another channel, and it's Pearl Jam. And she wants to leave that on. I'm like, you just turned off one grunge band for another. And then I switched to one other channel, and Def Leppard starts playing, and my exact words were, how about let's listen to the genre that grunge killed. Let's listen to some hair metal instead.
Biscuit.
Well, Shane, you're kind of burying the lead here. What movie did you see? Is what's most important.
Encanto. Great.
Ooh, it was good.
It.
Okay.
Yes. Very different.
Disney is your god now.
But that's the thing, because like the 80s, by the late 80s, it was all hair metal and very like glossed up. Like even Judas Priest was making like albums like Turbo and stuff like that. And then like grunge came along, where it's just like, we're not gonna take this shit anymore. And like it completely changed.
Dressing like Nita.
And this was a big turning point in our society, late 80s into the 90s, of like a lot of the 80s really was that consumerism, Reaganomics. You watch anything like American Psycho, Wolf of Wall Street, and all these big business kind of like, that was life. Having guys having dick measuring contests over the business cards. And, you know, that was what society was like. And this film's just one big giant punch to the face and a flip into the bird of just like, screw all that. And it's so interesting because like John Carpenter's voice in this is like, I don't care. This is in your face. And we're going to tear this all down. And that's what we got at the end when he blows up that satellite dish. And all that's just like, we're bringing the whole system down. And
the satellite dish being blown up is, I mean, it's a symbol for think for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think, honestly, that's a big, if that's all you come away with this, is the, you know, hey, think for yourself, read, think, you know, and you know, think for yourself. Don't let all these other images and all these things play on your impulses. And, you know, just do what the magazine tells you to do, what the smartphone tells you to do. I really think it's just a giant message of think for yourself, you know, in a lot of ways.
So I like that, Alex, but if I can push back a little bit, I think I figured out where Shane and I, like the kind of problem with the movie. And I think it's this. So like, it's supposed to be that this nobody construction worker is fully capable of waking other people up, of tearing down the system, right? But to me, the problem is that he doesn't educate himself. He doesn't have to think. he just uses his big muscles and guns to do it. You know what I mean? I think that's the crux of what, like, this little worm in the back of my head that kind of, you know, is leading me towards conspiracy theories and stuff. Like, I think people latch on to, and this isn't a criticism of Carpenter really, but because I'm stuck on System of a Down at the moment. It's really easy to listen to System of a Down and get caught up in the aggression and the violence of it and totally miss all of the content that's there. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like,
Nuance.
I guess if I had a major criticism of the movie, it would be that he doesn't have to, he doesn't really get enlightened. He just puts the sunglasses on, you know what I mean? But
He's going from
I mean,
one thing to another thing, basically.
and we're missing, there's like a key that's missing, I guess.
Well,
like,
I guess, like, my thought on it is, I guess the first act of the film is him slowly piecing things together. Because, like, other people are just like, look at this stupid thing coming on the TV. And they're just like, yada, yada, yada. And he's standing there, like, suspiciously looking over at this church and seeing weird things going on. And he's snooping around. And I guess, like, obviously there's a literal mechanism for him to be woken up in this. But, like, I guess from, like, a metaphorical standpoint, it's more just like he was searching around and was able to find his awakening. It's just in the movie, it's a physical thing. And in real life, it's going to be you being able to find that. Like,
Internally,
finding that-
kind of just look in yourself and find out what you need to change.
Yeah, like, obviously in this movie, because, like, it's a cool narrative thing. And, like, look, cool sunglasses. And you throw them on. But, like, I feel like he did do some legwork to try to, like, figure out, like, what's going on here while everybody else was just sitting around watching the TV or just minding their own business. And, like, even Frank, who's like, Frank knows something's going on, but he doesn't want to confront it. Because, like, his whole entire thing is like, leave me alone, get the hell away from me. But, like, he's not dumb. He knows something's going on. But, like, Nada went into that church, snooped around, and was trying to figure out what the hell's going on in the world around them. So, like,
Yeah, like Nate.
Go ahead, Vinny.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like when Nada was snooping around, that's when his character was the most interesting because number one, he was finding stuff out, and number two, he wasn't talking.
To be fair, when Roddy Piper's doing more physical things in this movie, is better off.
Right. Yes.
So, or when he's like, when he's getting hyped up, because here's the thing, and some of the people on this call appreciate this because wrestling fans, wrestling is acting. It's a lot of physicality, but it is acting. And, like, you could be a shitty pro wrestler, can't cut a promo, and can't connect with the audience and be a bad actor. That's not Roddy Piper. Like, he was one of the most electrifying personalities in pro wrestling at the time. And, like, watching him cut promos and stuff like that, he's, like, on a whole other level than a lot of people. And obviously, it's a different translation. This is his first, like, feature film. Film acting is different than being able to cut a promo in pro wrestling. And, like, I wonder if he really did stick to the acting, like, being able to do that. Because, like, let's be real here. What was The Rock's first acting role?
Scorpion King?
Be
The
Cool?
Scorpion King.
Oh, it was Scorpion.
How much talking did they let him do in that?
Haku Machente.
Nothing.
Ah!
Haku Machente. That's all he said.
Yeah. So, like,
Oh no, that was the CG cartoon version of him going. Ah!
oh, you mean the PS2 version of him when he turns up as, like, the scorpion, like, actual scorpion?
I mean, Thanksgiving's coming up. It could have easily been confused for a Thanksgiving Day float.
And, like, trust me, I've watched The Marine. I've watched 12 Rounds when John Cena was just doing WWE films. It's very different John Cena than showed up as Peacemaker in Suicide
Well, it's
Squad.
like like with The Rock and John Cena, it really is amazing, like how far they've come in their acting careers. Like I don't think anybody could have anticipated the success that they would have in like major Hollywood movies.
Yeah. Well, and I don't, and like Roddy Piper never really committed to that. I know Hulk Hogan tried to, because he popped up in a few movies. Like obviously
three ninjas.
Three ninjas. Oh, no,
it's interesting we're talking about like simplified roles, because I know Matt, you were saying it earlier, is that there is a video game aspect to this, whereas in some ways he is your main character. He's there's not going to be too much personality to him. It just has to be a character that's going through all this stuff, has these amazing abilities that you're kind of like a main character to a video game.
There's a little thing called main character syndrome, where like people think that like everything is like everyone is counting on them and they need to like solve something and save the day, and like you have to
that's a real condition.
Well, I don't know if it's like I think it's kind of like a I don't know, like an internet diagnosis, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's in like a medical textbook, but I have met people, I think we've all met people that are kind of act like that. Like, we just call them narcissists, but yeah, I think that's like,
not necessarily.
So,
some of them,
what happened?
Some of it's codependence.
Well, then that's also a different flavor of bad.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit over here with my master's in accounting and just listen to all of you talk about.
We gotta get deep about this. We gotta go deep about this in our profession. Like, we gotta take it to a whole other level.
If anything, I'm more of a supporting character.
I'm gonna sit here with my lovely business degree and be like, "Oh, this commentary about business is true."
Well, let me say this. No, I'm gonna bring it back to Carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
I think as a film director, you've got with movies like Escape from New York and this, you're getting into a John Carpenter who's really viewing the world like more of a anthropologist, sociologist, really looking at human beings as a whole and seeing how they're moving, how they're behaving, how they're dealing with, the authority, the politics, the money, the relationships, the media. I think that's kind of what you're seeing, in this. That's kind of what he's doing, and it is a wake up. It is a bit of a wake up call. But I think he's also having a lot of fun. And I also think that you're supposed to have some fun with it. And I think if you're like, for example, like if you're a conservative, for example, if you're like a right-wing conservative, I think you should be able to watch the movie and get a good laugh. Maybe if you're a left-wing liberal, you all really left-wing, maybe you also watch the movie and get a real good laugh, And if you're in the middle, you're more likely to be able to do something about it.
Hey, man, I mean, it could go over your head. The message can go over and you'll still have a good time watching it.
Yeah, exactly. I think you have to sort of make some sort of compromise as a viewer. I think you do have to watch it through the lens of like, this is art. There's something being said here. There's something to take away from this, but I don't think it should be taken too seriously. But I think a few friends should be able to get together, have some beers, and just have fun with a movie like this.
That's actually, I think, how the first time we saw it, Shane, though, right?
Alex, I like what you're saying. Like, I feel like kind of like I was saying before about like the fantasy thing. I think like it should be seen as kind of just like a fantasy, because if you sort of take it too seriously, and you kind of see that, if you see like this movie in particular. Because like Shane, I get what you're talking about. Where in the beginning, he's like searching for clues, but then I feel like him being somebody that is like inquisitive and wants to know more and wants to understand more. That's only like a tiny bit of the movie, and the rest of it, I'm not saying it's glorifying violence, but I am saying that like that takes way much more of just like the runtime of just like what's happening, and almost to the point where it's kind of like, to get things done, you have to be like aggressive or violent or whatever. But but that's supposed to just be like fun, and it's kind of like, it's like popcorn. I feel like if you watch this movie as a kind of like a call to action, and you are kind of like that person that has like, oh man, like I need to save everybody. I feel like that would be kind of like that would maybe, I could see someone watching this movie and saying that movie maybe just like a little bit irresponsible, in the sense where it's kind of like that could cause people to wake up and then but want to like violently wake up, or violently want to wake up other people,
like the Matrix.
Yeah, exactly. So like look at this as more kind of like a fun thing, because if you kind of put two into it, you could potentially kind of like see some.
But I mean, you don't want to go into that argument though, because I feel like, wouldn't you say that for all art, where like you could take it too seriously?
There's people that
look at this kind of like fun, because the subject of the movie is like what you guys were saying before, just like think for yourself, think clearly, but think for yourself also kind of like implies that maybe like other people aren't thinking for themselves, or that other people are doing the thinking for you. And then that could be something that kind of like pisses people off or makes people.
I need to go rob a bank right now.
I would say, I think that some of those, I think it was meant to piss some people. I think those people are supposed to be pissed off.
Yeah.
I'm going to quote Kumail Nanjiani. I think this movie pisses off the people we want to piss off. Kind of thing.
And I also think, and this is fine, but I think there are also people who are going to watch it and they don't want to think about it. They don't want to think about this. It's like, hey, I'll take the blue pill or whatever the hell is, put the thing back in my neck. Like I like,
But at the end of the day, I feel like that's what separates good. I mean, and it's kind of like with comedy. Like it separates good comedy in a sense to bad comedy, where it just offends for the hell of offending. Whereas you can have offensive comedy, or you can have good comedy tell you something, laugh at yourself, and be okay with laughing at yourself because the way it was told was good.
Right. Yeah,
guys, I'm really sorry. I actually have to sign. I had to sign off early tonight, so I'm just gonna mosey on out. I'm sorry.
They're telling you to sign off early. That's not what you want. No, I'm just
all right, but listen, great talk as always, and I look forward to next month
when we watch Drive, and we'll reinforce that later as well. Okay. But I guess at this point, because like obviously we've thrown around a lot of thoughts about this film, and you could take this film in a whole bunch of different kinds of directions. But I guess, is there any other big things, major thoughts that anybody wanted to bring up about They Live?
If somebody gets pissed off at this movie, like pissed off in a sense where it's kind of like, oh, why are people like, this movie shouldn't be saying people should like rise up, because then like the status quo changes and it makes me have less power. Like if those people like that, if they watch that movie, then yeah, they should be pissed off. Like screw them. But but like if you watch this movie and it's kind of like, yeah, like maybe I should kind of like I should know more about what's going on around me. I feel like that's awesome. And that's super dope. Mostly because that doesn't end up with somebody like, I don't know, like with a bazooka in their hand or storming the Capitol.
Or starting a fight club, for example.
Or that.
That's another
like that
one.
conversation we're having.
Jim and I have been talking about that.
On the side, in real life, we were talking about how like, movies that have like I get more so with like unrelatable heroes, or like people worship certain characters that are like narcissists or assholes, like the Tony Sopranos or the Rick Sanchez's. Like, oh, we love those guys, but we shouldn't really love them. They're not people that we should love. Kind of like what you're saying, Matt, where it's like we shouldn't be committing crimes to wake up people, right? It's very much like the idea is there. We just need to like ask questions and like maybe think about it, but like not take it to the extreme. I mean, with anything can be taken to an extreme as long as there's moderation.
Well, and I feel like this film, which is what 11 years before The Matrix came out, really does set the stage for the same kinds of ideas that The Matrix brings to the table. And
You're saying The Matrix is an original? Are you kidding me?
Well, that was what I wanted to talk about, because I know Jim mentioned it. Everybody brings The Matrix. The first time I saw The Matrix, I remember talking with buddies at the time. They said, They Live was like the same story as The Matrix. It's not, but it's very similar, obviously.
Yeah.
But what I would say, and feel free to disagree,
I will.
I don't think The Matrix. Better listen to me. I don't think The Matrix stirs people up like this movie does. I don't think The Matrix digs in as deeply as I think The Matrix lives a little bit more in its own universe.
God damn it, Alex. We were going to be getting that HBO Max promotion. We were going to get that sponsorship before you said that. They're going to turn their heads all of a sudden. We're going to lose that ad revenue.
I screwed that up for Shane.
If Applebee's is not
by the
giving
way,
us any
Matrix
ad revenue,
Resurrections comes out in December. Go watch it.
When's Applebee's going to start doing ads on our video?
Yeah, dude,
We bring them up every single time.
video you have, Shane, there should be a freaking Applebee's ad.
I mean, I was just having their Cheetos boneless wings. I mean, it's a great flavoring.
Yeah.
I mean, just to put that out there, guys.
All right, I think
Just
I
go eat
ruined
some
that one.
half-price mozzarella sticks after 9 o'clock at night, like a normal person. People.
Matt, are you dying inside right now?
So
like,
here's an interesting thing. So
Deliver.
The Matrix did stir people up. Just I think some very bad situations wound up happening. And that's the challenge. This is all art. This is fiction. But the unfortunate thing is not everybody can process that in their own heads.
unfortunately.
And there's a documentary that came out last year that I do think was a little irresponsible in how it portrayed some things called The Glitch in the Matrix.
Oh.
And there's a whole entire sequence in it that walks through a very detailed account of somebody murdering their family to wake them up from the Matrix.
Whoa.
And like stuff like that happened. And obviously
that's exactly what you were talking about, Matt.
That person was not okay and took fiction and tried to process it as their reality. And that's the tricky thing about films that challenge people. But the thing is, it's like, how can you fault art for being art, and how people that might not be able to process it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting, challenging conversation to have. But the thing is, it's like, I was 8 years old when The Matrix came out. And I'm pretty sure I watched that way too young. Because like that was one of those things I probably watched when I was like 12 or 13 years old. But the thing is, it's like those They Live, The Matrix, they're not the same movie. They are obviously two very different stories, but they have the same basic theme and idea of waking up and realizing the world around you. Because the thing is, it's like, why is this week so important to so many people? Besides Thanksgiving, what else?
Football. Oh, Black Friday shopping.
Black Friday shopping.
Yeah.
I've already done Black Friday shopping. And it's just like, pumping money into Amazon and Best Buy, because that's what I did already. And the thing is, it's like, it's consume. And it's so weird that like you have one day that's supposed to be all thankful about the things that you have in your life. And then the next day, go out and
I'm going to go bounce,
money as
family.
possible.
Bye, y'all. I'm going to go buy something.
And
Give me that TV I could have got for the same price on Cyber Monday.
And Shane, like if you value the relationships with the people you bought those things for. And
Yes.
so as long as you value that, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's just that, if what you're buying and the money you're spending is more important than the relationships and the status and the way they think about you is more important. The giver. It's about the giver and not the gift. Now it sounds like we're getting into like Sunday school talk or like sure, which is fine, which is good because that's like
that's what good art does. It gets you talking.
Yeah, but that's the thing is it's not black or white. It's very gray.
Well, and the thing is, you're trying to focus on where you're placing that value. And obviously, there's a lot of mechanisms that are like, we want the value to be on, I want you to spend your money. And that's the thing, because it's like they're companies, they want you to spend money. Jeff Bezos is sitting there, I'm like, I want all of your money. I need to take more trips to space. And like, obviously, Amazon wants to make as much money as possible. But like it's like, hopefully you're buying these gifts for people or, you're spending a lot of money buying a bunch of movies like I did.
Right.
And continue to watch these movies and learn stuff from them. And like, obviously I value film a lot and what I learned from film because, I spend a lot of time sitting on the internet talking about it and spending a lot of time watching them. And I love to watch film because like they make me feel, they make me experience new things, and they make me learn new things. And I remember watching They Live for the first time and thinking about like, wow, this movie like really took a shot at like that just blind, just like spend your money, do exactly what they want you to do, get married, reproduce. Well, sorry, wrong order. Get a job, go to college, get a job, get married, buy a house, have kids, rinse, dry, repeat. And your kids do the same thing. Right. And that's an interesting thing because it's like, not everybody has to keep following that path. That's not everybody's roadmap. But like for a long time, our society was like, that was the conformity that people expected of people. Mm-hmm. And, in the 50s, 60s shook that up. 70s could try to continue to shake that up and then fell back into line with the 80s.
Right.
And, we're sitting here in 2021, and I think there's a lot of different expectations of how people live lives. And a lot of people who don't understand other people's perspectives. Because here's the thing. So what's our range of ages here? Like
20s, 30s.
Late 20s into mid 30s, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, how many of us have money to throw around to buy a house?
A $1 bill. That's my dollar. I gave you that dollar. You gotta give me back that $1 bill.
And it's just like most people, like most millennials and generations younger than us, don't have. Like my grandparents were able to just buy a house. They moved out of Philly, bought a house. No
credit checks, no nothing.
No loans. Wow.
No, bought a house for $12,000.
Right.
Good luck.
That's the thing of that 1980s time. A lot of people did buy houses, but not with not real money, not money that they had, money
it was
that
an
they
investment.
were going to earn. And there were a lot of people that it didn't work for because it was a carrot that they could not grab.
Gotta go watch The Big Short, and Margot Robbie in a bathtub is going to tell us about how everybody foreclosed on all of their big mortgages and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
And
but even, and yes, no, that's all good and well, but people, dug themselves into the ground trying to make those lives work, trying as hard as they could to make those their lives work. And
they forgot who they were at that
Jim,
point.
I think you have something to say, it looks like. So
me?
Jim.
Oh.
Did you want to say something?
Oh man, I have a bunch of things to say. Okay, so like as usual, I'm glad we have these little chats because it always leaves me. I leave the conversation thinking about the movie in a new way, in a different way than I did before. I do remember the first time I saw The Matrix. I was probably 12 or 13. I'm a few years older than you are, Shane. It was, oh my gosh, first time hearing Rage Against the Machine. The song was literally Wake Up. But what I do remember about my first time seeing The Matrix is that I firmly was in a science fiction mindset because I wasn't mature enough to really think about the themes of the movie like in a full way, right? So in terms of They Live, right, I kind of have an appreciation for the aliens now, whereas watching the movie now in my 30s, I was a little bit disappointed with Carpenter for setting up the scene for a really hard-hitting philosophical discussion on the screen with setting up, capitalism and mindless consumerism as like the enemy, right? And then I was a little disappointed that he gave it his alien face, but like in light of what you guys were saying about, and I think of like the killing that was inspired by Taxi Driver, for example, like people that aren't ready for that much truth, maybe, there should be that level there. When kids first learn about Columbus, for example, you don't tell them that the native population was wiped out by disease. It's a little too heavy for kindergartners to process, you know what I mean? So I kind of get now, and I appreciate a little bit more why Carpenter did the story the way he did. I think that's what you saw in my face, and that's what I had to say.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing too, because like anytime you're trying to do like an allegory, a metaphor, or something, it's just like there has to be a surface level, and then there has to be what you're trying to say under it too. And obviously, when you really strip this away, this is a guy fighting off aliens. Like there's an alien invasion, they're taking over. But like obviously there's a lot more going on than him just trying to shoot a bunch of aliens. And they're creepy looking formaldehyde face and little drones flying around and like this. Well, yeah. And like this film gets like aggressively violent. And a lot of times like that whole raid of like the tents and everything, that's so aggressive. And like when they break into the secret meeting and they're just lighting everybody up, it's just like, holy shit, what's going on here? And like this movie is like a full-blown sci-fi action movie.
The crazy thing about that too is like I think they use visual metaphor to a painting by Goya, where Goya was a big painter, and around the time Napoleon was rising to power, and people were like raising their hands while they had like squadrons aiming guns towards them. The visual metaphor of like the system trying to like silence the poor. I think I don't remember specifically, but I remember that it's making those visual parallels to that artwork, and it just kind of goes over the fact that like, I was thinking about how like commentary, do we need commentary in every movie that comes out? Probably not. But at the end of the day, having something to say does help make good art. I mean, at the end of the day, a painting is just strokes of paint on a canvas. The movie that we're watching is just, a sequence of photographs in motion for 24 frames per second that make up people doing this and talking, right? But I mean, if there's something there that like means something to you and has something that relates to it, I mean, that's the plus. And I think we can all agree that, that's what this movie gives, is a good story and some fun people trying to suplex people into putting on glasses.
But here's the thing. Why are they trying to put all these messages in our science fiction nowadays?
It's the Illuminati is making us think that way, obviously.
Because you know, things like Invasion of the Body Snatchers in like the 1950s sure didn't have a message. And different
wrong one.
That's the 70s one.
That's the other one.
But it's just like, that's the whole entire point of science fiction, is trying to use a different otherworldly kind of story to try to tell messages and stories. And, you know, like, I saw people getting upset about them rebooting the X-Men animated series because that's coming back with a new season.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're gonna get the original writers, but they're gonna use like today's animation to continue where that last episode ended.
It's X-Men 97.
Into today's,
Except it's just like, I saw a whole bunch of posts of like, why are they getting a bunch of woke writers ruining X-Men, putting messages in it? And it's just like,
dude, are you? Come on, man.
Now the funny thing about that too is like, I can't stand, you know, stories and commentary. I'm gonna go watch Wall-E, and then
Right, there you go.
a friendly kids movie with no politics involved.
speaking of consumerism, when we're all just big giant floating babies in front of a screen and not being able to actually like do anything for ourselves.
I feel called out, Shane.
Almost.
I feel a little called out right now. Just a little bit.
But
are all my chin showing?
But that's the interesting thing about movies, is because, you know, and I think we talked about this a couple of times, this movie is not trying to be subtle about what it's doing, but there's subtlety at times with what it is doing. And I think that's I love, just from the filmmaking standpoint, of the cut to black and white, those quick shots of like quick glances and like trying to like catch every little thing. Like the shot of like the cityscape. Did I get to read all the billboards? Did I see every little thing that was on there? And there's just so much to process and so much there to take in. And this is sad because I'm looking at John Carpenter's filmography and it all went downhill from here. Because like legitimate, because like, so after this, he had Memoirs of an Invisible Man, never heard of it, TV movie called Body Bags. 94 was In the Mouth of Madness, which I do like, with Sam Neill in it. He remade Village of the Damned in 1995, Escape from LA in 96.
No.
Vampires, Ghosts of Mars, and then his last movie was 2010, The Ward. And you know,
which one was the one with Soldier? The one was that the Ghost of Mars
with like Ice Cube in it?
No, I thought he made a movie where it was about like, it was just called Soldier, right?
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah.
I don't know if he directed that.
That's not a Carpenter film.
Really?
Ghost of Mars had Ice Cube as Desolation Williams.
Desolation Williams?
You know, I really think that Carpenter, he hit his stride in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big like slasher movie fan, so like some people love the first Halloween. You look at it like a classic, but that movie, I don't even view it as a Carpenter movie, even though, of course, it certainly is. Well, I look at Escape from New York, The Thing, Big Trouble, and this as his big four, where he was really kind of making a statement, you know.
Well, you know what's interesting, Alex, is so how many of you have watched the movies that made us on Netflix?
A little bit.
A little bit.
So this most recent season, they did Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street.
Okay. Yeah.
Halloween's not the same thing as those other movies. Halloween has no blood in it. Barely any blood. It barely shows any violence.
And it's about a guy who has no superpowers.
It's Halloween's about the specter, the shape, and that constant, like the scariest moments in that film are the daylight ones, where he's just lurking in the background, voyeuristic, looking at these young women walking home. That's why, like, to me, like Halloween's just not a slasher film. it's a different thing. It's I
Yeah.
feel like it's definitely not like Friday the 13th with just a bunch of dumbass teenagers getting cut up by some lady whose son died on.
Well, it's well done because it does get under my skin. Halloween.
Well,
I think
that's the
I
thing.
have
It
to
is still
check.
horror
I have to
movie.
make sure there's no one in the garage about 3 times after I watch movies.
But
like
by
that.
the way, speaking
Good.
of Halloween, I didn't know if you guys knew this, but on TikTok there's a thing where like little kids actually like Michael Myers, and like a lot of guys I guess during Halloween would dress up in the Michael Myers getup, and then like there's like little kids that'd be like, Michael's here! Like instead of like being freaked out that there's some guys just creepily standing with a knife, like you see kids, Michael, give me a hug! And like the guy's just like, what? Like
Do you
what's
think
wrong
that
with society?
happens? Is this because their parents grew up loving those movies, so they've seen the movies and they
Yeah,
were
it's
too young to
possible.
be scared? Like they didn't know that it was supposed to be scary?
And the
I
parents
saw a
were-
couple of those and I didn't understand what was going on at all.
Yeah, right. Like I saw that too. I'm like, this is a character that was like stabbing people into walls, like that.
What's wrong with kids today? Grrr. Old man shaking fist at the sky.
You know, the funny thing about that too, though, Shane, is like when They Lived came out, right? And we're talking about our generation.
Yeah.
Imagine the older generation watching They Live, talking about how it's probably offended them, but then really sticking to us, right?
It still offend my mom.
So it's
Economy. We got to
I-
save the economy.
I
How
think
dare
my
they try to
grand-
kill the economy?
It depends on. Oh, it depends. I think about my grandfather watching They Live. I think as soon as he saw the message, he would have gone, "Son, I've been doing this. Like, take it off because I've been doing this my whole life." I mean, his whole like he was just.
Well, that's the thing. It's people's perspectives because, like,
You
there
know.
is the very conservative. It's like we need to make sure the economy's great and protect the economy at all costs. And it's just like, at what cost? And obviously, a lot of people die in this one.
Well,
Keep that
and
consumerism going.
He wasn't. He was very liberal politically, at least, and socially. But he, you know, he lived through. He saw the hippie movement, and once he viewed it, he wasn't part of it, but he watched it, and he would go and he would write, or he would, or he would lecture, and about why it was happening. And so he was more of a sociologist in that sense.
And then you got the Big Lebowski. It's like the bums lost. So, but anyway,
a great movie.
so we were a little all over the place with this discussion, which I feel like there's a lot to talk about this movie, well beyond 10-minute pro wrestling street fights, beating the crap out of each other. But, I think this was a fun conversation, a lot of thoughts, a lot of things to share. Any last second kinds of things before we wrap up this episode?
I want to hear everybody's favorite quote from the movie.
That is a great way to end it. Joe, what's your favorite quote?
I mean, the classic bubblegum one. I mean, just the whole sequence from the moment he's in that floral shop to the bank. Anything Roddy Piper is saying is just very fun.
That's
You
a
know.
cheat. You got to say one line.
Oh my god.
Joe.
Was it one of them where he looks at the little box and he's like, knock, knock? Right? Was that what he said?
What did he say?
Or I see you.
It's just like
Like one of the ones where he just sees like the little shuttle and he's like looking up and he gives a one-liner. That's like a personal one. Is it
what
wrong that
is
I
it?
don't
Like,
actually know
nobody
the
likes
specific one?
tattletales.
Thank you.
And shoots it.
I hate that I couldn't actually get the quote, but just that bit,
Yeah,
that's my personal favorite. 'cause the
Jim,
way
what's
the
your
camera's
favorite quote?
And I was hoping you guys would be able to remember better. I'm going to go with the quote from The Wall, which I believe was, "We sleep, they live." Right?
Yeah, because like they actually did have it. They live.
It was in the church, I think. It
yeah.
was written in paint or graffitied or something on the church. It was something to that effect.
Yeah, we sleep, they live. Because that was like in the background in the church. What about you, Matt?
What was that quote that I groaned at?
Oh,
That's your
life's a
favorite now?
bitch. And she's back in heat.
Yeah, it's memorable. Now
That's
I
like
want,
you being called out on something. You're like, that's my favorite anyways.
yeah, no, now I want to immediately forget that because
Alex, what's yours?
It's not necessarily my favorite, but it's the one that stuck out this time around. We all sell out every day. You might as well be on the winning team.
Damn, man.
Who said that? Who said that?
The old guy, the guy
Yeah.
who was watching the TV in the Tarrytown, the shelter town.
I think they just call him the Drifter. Like that's his character's
But
name.
then when they go through the warp hole and they meet up with him in the TV studio.
Oh, right.
Oh, I do remember. Yeah.
Yep. And then I guess my favorite quote is, you know, I put on these sunglasses. You look fine. You real effing ugly. Like, I feel like that's his peak line delivery because you feel that, like, having been a wrestling fan and seeing like Rowdy Roddy Piper and him going like that. And that's just like, that's Rowdy Roddy Piper right there.
He felt like he was in his element. Like before that, with the whole beginning of the movie, it's like it's slower, you know, it takes you a while to get there. That once he actually puts on the glasses and it's like his personality comes out and it's like
he knows how to act in those scenes. He doesn't know how to act in the other scenes.
Because like I
mean, that's why it works in Always Sunny, where he's mostly just acting like.
Because it's like him getting interviewed at the beginning of the movie, and then you look at The Shining, where Jack Nicholson is just like.
He's basically waiting to, like, you know, kill Shelley Duvall. Like, even like they show the prep video for him getting ready to get into character, you see him like jumping,
murdering. But anyway,
I'll see if I can find an old WWF promo with Rowdy Roddy Piper. There's one with him and Bret Hart where he's making fun of Bret Hart because his mom used to make him sandwiches. She's making you sandwiches, and she's making you sandwiches, and like it's just ridiculous. You got to see it.
Yeah, and like I know there's the hot rod one's a little controversial at this point, where he put on like.
Half white. When he fought that News Brown, he was he was half black, half white. Well, that
probably has not aged well.
No. Rowdy Roddy Piper has some great promos. I don't know if any of them are as good as the Cream of the Crop, where Macho Man just keep fighting creamers.
Yeah. I thought you were gonna say Roddy Piper did the Cream of the Crop, but I was like, nope, that was
Macho Man.
That was
Macho Man.
And they magically appearing and disappearing creamers.
I know,
like, where do they keep coming from? Is he a magician?
Didn't grow up with pro wrestling, but like if you go on YouTube and just watch like Macho Man, like ridiculous promos, you just type that in. Like he would just turn his back to the camera and start shouting in the middle of the locker room. It was just the greatest.
And the crazy thing about the creamer is like you could just think he was in the like lunchroom, right? Just finding stuff, and it's like, all right, I'm gonna make my promo about creamers.
Yeah. But
insane.
So
Cream of the Crop, man.
Bonesaw. So,
hey, freak soul.
So
you're going nowhere.
And on that,
got you for 3 minutes.
So
3 minutes of playtime.
Next month we're going to be celebrating the end of this year. So our thing is we do films that are at least 10 years old. To the wrap up 2021, we're going to do a film that is 10 years old. And we did a little tournament before we got on here, and we're going to be doing Drive. So, which I know is very high on Alex's list for anybody who listened to our podcast at the very beginning when Alex, Matt, and I talked about our top films. So I'm excited to talk about Drive, talk about some Ryan Gosling and some great supporting cast and some great music, some great direction. But Joe, thank you for joining us this
Thank you
time
so
around.
much.
Thank you, Vinnie, off wherever Vinnie's doing things. Jim, Matt, Alex, and from Shane. Thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting the Development Hell podcast.